I'm CK. Tonight we have another module from Frequency Central. It's a bass drum module. Should be pretty easy, should be pretty straightforward. We'll put it together and see how it sounds. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's see what's in the box. From Frequency Central in Coventry. Address. Got this from thonk.co.uk. Nice packaging, nice paper packaging. Another Frequency Central sticker, I got plenty of those. Eurorack cable, power cable. Let's get the box ready for recycling. I think the panel and the circuit board are in here. Let's take a look. And here we are. Type, looks like there are 8 different types of bass drums. Then tuning, -5, +5, and distortion, -5, +5. And then there's gate, and that's probably an LED. Type, probably a CV value for type, CV value for tune. The out and distorted out, I'm gonna guess Seismograf is the name of the unit. And here's the jack board. Seismograf, PCB by J. Dunn. Jet Holt and Rick Holt did the design. Serial number or SKU number, something like that. Pot. Diode, resistor, LED for the trigger, and then the jacks and place for pin headers. Then the logic board, again, code by Jetroid. Don't know, I haven't done anything that Jetroid had done yet. And we've got caps, resistors, transistors, seismograph, that's probably the IC containing the custom programming for the drum, some diode ladders, transistor, a couple of caps, power connector, and an op amp down here. And all the values are printed on the board except for the diodes, so we're going to assume they're all 4148s probably. We'll see that in a minute or two. And then here, thou shalt not make repetitive generic music. I agree with that. If you've listened to any of my music, SoundCloud link in the description, you'll see I don't make repetitive or generic music. You might not like it, but it certainly is not generic or repetitive. Now, let's look at the bits. This feels like the mechanical bits in this bag. See, these are nice paper bags, not plastic bags. That means I can recycle these. Everybody should do things like this. No more plastic bags. Oop. The only challenge with paper bags is you really have to, I generally have to rip them open just to make sure I've picked all the bits out of them because they can get stuck. And we've got typical Frequency Central knobs, which are okay. They at least have brass set screws, but they don't have a metal insert, which means you have to be careful when you're tightening these not to strip the plastic since it's metal into plastic. They're okay. Jacks, I'll go ahead and spin the panel nuts off the jacks while I'm here so I don't frustrate myself later. All the pots are the same value, and we've got pin headers that we're going to have to cut ourselves, which is not a big deal. Now here's the bits, the electronic bits. Again, not a whole lot of parts in this kit. My light's all funny. Sorry, I gotta adjust my light. I moved it around this morning for another project. Yep, 41, 48 diodes, as I suspected. The resistors, a shrouded power cable, power connector, which is always nice to make sure you never get the polarity wrong. And then, yeah, this is the bass drum. Jetroid did the bass drum here. I don't know what part this is. I'm not going to peel the label off to look at it because it doesn't matter that much. It's just some microcontroller, probably an Atmel. And that's it. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Doesn't look like anything's going to be out of the ordinary or challenging particularly. So we'll get the soldering iron heated up and put this thing together. And someone at Funk thoughtfully put the resistor values on the little paper tape for those of you who are resistor color band challenged. It's just a nice thing. Don't assume it'll happen. If you ever want to learn more, I suggest you get something like this. This is a resistor, has a resistor calculator function. So this, if it's a 5-ring like these are, you just type in the values: brown, black, black, red, and brown for the tolerance, 1% tolerance. And as you can see, that comes out to 10K, and these are 10K. This is a kit that you can get from Amazon and eBay. I have a build video of this on my channel, which includes the link to the product. I'll link it below in the description. But that's a good way to learn your color bands. So let's see, I think I'll put the two 1K resistors on this board first so I don't forget. And we'll do one and see how the board takes solder. I've done a lot of frequency central modules, so I'm pretty confident that this is a very high quality board. Now, you do have to leave a millimeter, 2 millimeters of bend away from the body. You don't want to be right up against the body for these, for the layout software they use, or the board manufacturer that they use, but that's not a big deal. So, oops, that always happens. I know I should never do that. Let's see, soldering iron. That's way too thick solder. That's my thick solder. Let me get some thinner solder and see how it goes. Very nice, as always. Again, the boards they use, the manufacturer they use for their boards, they make good boards. So I'm going to do all the rest of the resistors, and there's not much, and I'll do the diodes too. There's not much more to mention, except of course for the diodes, make sure you get the polarity right. Black stripe goes to the flat side of the diode symbol. Also black stripe goes to the square solder pad. But other than that, there's not much to say, so I will put the video in fast playback and you can watch all the resistors and diodes fly onto the board, because it's resistor time. That's all the resistors, not too many, and all the diodes. Now next I'm going to put the IC sockets on the board. And this should go here. Oh, the pins are all snaggly. That's why it's not going in, because the pins are snaggled up. There we go. Rest the board and the socket on my pinky finger. And then tack one leg. Let it cool. Look at the front. Yep, it's all flat. We can move on to getting the op-amp socket on the board. All good. Now we'll do all the rest of the pins. That's that. I'm going to look at this one a little bit. Yeah, he's not using many of the pins on this chip. Interesting. Now we will do the regular capacitors. This is a 22 pico, goes here. Oh, by the way, you might notice, I don't know if there's a build guide. There was no indication in the packaging that there was one. There may be one on their website. I looked at it and said, well, all the values on the board, it's a relatively simple kit. There's no calibration. So, and the pots on the front are pretty clear on what they do, so I don't think we need the build guide for this one. These both the same. Yes, they are. And I don't try to pull these out of the tape holding them. I just cut them loose. Trying to get them out just is a big fight. And may as well put the transistors this is a regulator. 78 ammo 5. Where it should be near. There it is. I thought I said it should be near the power connector, and it is. Yeah, once you build a few of these, you'll get an instinct for if you're trying to find where a component goes. If you know what it is, you'll get a sense for a rough guess of where it's going to be, what it's going to be close to. Just experience. Now we'll put the, I'm going to go ahead and put the electrolytics on, and there's a nice clear plus sign and square pad for the positive lead for the electrolytics. Actually, I'm not going to do the electrolytics yet. I'm going to do the power connector after I do these guys. So let me go ahead and solder the caps and the semiconductor. And we'll put the power connector on. And it shows where the notch is, but you can also double check that by putting the ribbon cable lightly in and seeing that the red stripe is here, and that's where the red stripe indicator is and the negative 12 volt indicator is, so we know that's the way the power connector goes. So my water heater just came on, so it's going to be a little noisy in the background. So that's the basic board there. Now I'm going to put the pin headers on, and it doesn't really matter which way they go, so we'll do this. Let me get another pair of diagonal cutting pliers. I just measure it like that. Now with these female pin headers, you always lose a pin. So don't try and conserve them, just cut right where that pin is, and you'll be fine. I think these are both the same size, but I'll just make sure. Now for the male pin headers, you of course do not lose a pin. And I'm going to use my other pliers for those. And I know these are the same count, the holes are the same count, but I'm going to do it this way anyway out of an excess of paranoia. Now, just like with the IC sockets, I don't care much if I get these parallel right now. I'll do one leg, and as you can see, it's not quite straight. and that's okay. I just press my thumb on it, reheat that solder point, and it goes flat on the board and it's straight. Of course, when you do that, make sure you don't put your thumb on the pin that you're heating up. So I'll finish that in a second. I'll go ahead and do female headers. Some people like to mate the pin headers and mate the boards and then solder. I don't. Neither way is right or wrong. It's just personal preference. I prefer to do it this way. I will double check that they will mate, and they will. Okay, I'm going to solder all these pins. Now I'm going to put all the knobs and jacks on. Now what I like to do is I will solder one pin on this pot. And one pin on the jack at the exact opposite of the board. Now I can put a panel nut on this. And a panel nut on this one. And then everything's together. It's not going to rattle around, and I can push the LED through. Now I'm going to solder up all these connections. Now we'll put the knobs on, which is often the hardest part for me, because I want to get the index marks lined up and equal, and I often don't. All the way counterclockwise. Index mark goes to the lowest index. You always want to make sure that it operates smoothly. Sometimes if you push the cap all the way down, it'll rub against the panel nut, and you don't really want that. You might have to leave a millimeter of space between the bottom of the knob and the panel nut. That's usually enough to make it not a problem. And again, be careful not to tighten these too much, you'll strip the plastic. And these are not completely lined up because I spazzed again, like I always do. And I'm not going to fix it. Now put the chips in, bend the legs in a little bit against the side of my workbench. Make sure we've got the notch going the correct way. And on the op amp, and these are from TI, these are Texas Instrument. It's got a dot instead of a notch, but it's the same thing. That little dot indicates the direction. Now I'm going to mate the two boards. Yep. Gotta make sure you get them right. And they're mated. Now we will put the power connector in, power cable in, that is. Like so. And we're all done. A real quick and easy build. So here's the front, and the other thing that you can do, that you see this black, they've got a snare drum also. So you can use a marker and put bass drum on there if you want. Since I only have this one module, I'm not going to do that yet. If I get the snare, I'll do that, but that's for the future. Front, side, back, other side, top, and bottom. And we'll go ahead and put this in the rack and see how it sounds, but I'm going to do that tomorrow because cats are scratching at the door saying it's time to get fed. So I'll go feed them. Okay, let's turn this on and see if it catches fire. No fire. Now I'll trigger it with some MIDI input. So that's what she's doing. Let's change. Well, that's nice. I like that. Well, that sounds good. Nice variety of kicks. Let me go ahead and detune a little bit. Uptune. Lots of flexibility there. Now I'm going to switch over to the distorted output. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's a CV for distortion. Now I'll change some distortion. So the distortion's nice. Now I'm going to plug it into my sequencer, the Division 6 sequencer, and we'll fire that off. Hopefully it won't be running too fast. I'll turn the sound down. I'm going to plug this LFO into the distortion. I'll plug the LFO into tune. That sounds kind of good. I'm going to put it into type now and see how weird that gets. I'm going to do both now. See how fast we can go. So that's it. A nice little sounding drum module, bass drum module with good presets, which is nice, so you can have variety, and putting some CV in for the 3 parameters works really well and gives you some interesting results. So a very quick build, as you saw. It's a very simple module. No calibration, no special handling, just plug it in and you got a bass drum. Another good one from Frequency Central. Thanks for watching the video.